On May 11, 1996, 8 climbers lay dying on Mount Everest. Among them was Rob Hall, one of the world's most experienced mountaineers. Trapped by a blizzard near the summit, Hall made a final radio call to his wife in New Zealand. His last words weren't about pain or fear. They were, "Sleep well, my sweetheart. Please don't worry too much." He knew he was going to die, but something in his mind had already accepted it. What was happening inside his brain in those final moments reveals something terrifying about extreme altitude. To understand what killed climbers on Everest, you need to understand the psychological states they experienced. Scientists have identified 8 major mental breakdowns that happen at extreme altitude. This is when your brain isn't getting enough oxygen, so it releases chemicals that make you feel happy. Climbers in this state feel peaceful. They feel content. Some climbers have reported feeling like they're floating. Francys Arsentiev reached the summit of Mount Everest in May 1998 with her husband, both attempting the climb without supplemental oxygen. On the way down, she developed severe high-altitude cerebral edema, swelling of the brain from oxygen deprivation. She became confused and hallucinated, but despite her body shutting down, she felt peaceful. Later, climbers found her in a sitting position against the mountain, unconscious but breathing. She looked almost as if she were peacefully sleeping. She had become known as the Sleeping Beauty of Everest, not because she was resting, but because her brain had created a false sense of peace and safety while her body was dying. Her final words were, "Don't leave me." Her mind was so disconnected from reality that she couldn't recognize the danger she was in. Your brain doesn't want to accept that you're in danger, so it creates stories. A climber named David Sharp became hypothermic during his descent. His body was shutting down, but his mind kept telling him he was okay. He sat down in the snow. Over 40 climbers passed him. He didn't call for help. He didn't move. His psychological state was so disconnected from reality that he couldn't recognize his own death approaching. He died in that cave, frozen in a sitting position. Summit fever and obsession. Your brain becomes locked onto one goal, the summit. Nothing else matters. Not safety, not time, not your life. Hannelore Schmatz reached the summit of Mount Everest on October 2, 1979. She became the 4th woman ever to summit. On the way down, she and her climbing partner Rationalization were exhausted. The sun was setting. Their guides urged them to keep moving, warning them about staying in the death zone at night. But their psychological state was so focused on what they'd accomplished that they couldn't focus on what they needed to do to survive. They stopped to rest at 8,500 meters. That night, the temperature dropped to -40 degrees Celsius. Rationalization died from hypothermia. Hannelore tried to continue the descent the next morning, but made it only 200 meters before collapsing. She died just 100 meters above the camp. So close, almost safe, but her mind had already stopped fighting. Cognitive breakdown. This is when your decision-making completely fails. Your brain can't process basic information anymore. Scott Fischer was one of the most experienced mountaineers in the world. During the 1996 Everest disaster, he was descending from the summit when he became severely altitude sick. His brain couldn't process basic information anymore. He stopped moving. He couldn't understand simple instructions from rescuers trying to help him. His mind had essentially shut down. His body was still alive, but his consciousness was gone. Rescuers found him unable to respond, unable to cooperate with his own rescue. Psychosis and hallucinations. At extreme altitude, some climbers lose touch with reality completely. They hallucinate. They see things that aren't there. Their brain creates an entirely false reality. Beck Weathers was caught in the 1996 Everest blizzard. He had become blind from high altitude, affecting his recently operated corneas. His body temperature was dropping. He was going into a hypothermic coma. But his mind had created a completely different reality. He believed he was in a hospital being treated. He felt warm blankets. He believed he was receiving medical care. In reality, he was freezing to death in a blizzard on the side of a mountain. His hallucinations were so real that his brain believed them. His mind had abandoned the horror of his actual situation and replaced it with a comforting lie. Apathy and learned helplessness. Your brain stops caring about survival. A climber reaches a point where they know they're going to die, and their mind simply accepts it. They stop trying. They stop fighting. Climbers in this state have been found sitting in the snow at temperatures far below freezing. They weren't unconscious. They were completely awake but completely indifferent. Their psychological state had surrendered to death before their body did. No struggle, no fear, just acceptance, just waiting. Compartmentalization and dissociation. Your mind separates from your body to protect itself from unbearable pain. Your consciousness continues functioning while your body shuts down. Rob Hall was trapped at 28,000 feet during the 1996 storm. His body was freezing. His fingers were blackened with frostbite. His consciousness was starting to slip. But his mind kept working. He stayed on his radio for hours, talking calmly about his situation, giving instructions, trying to coordinate rescue efforts. He was conscious and thinking, but his body was already shutting down. His mind was so disconnected from his body that he couldn't feel the reality of what was happening. He was dying, but the part of his brain that understood this was completely separated from the part that kept him talking and problem-solving. This is one of the most disturbing psychological states. Your brain becomes so damaged that it stops regulating body temperature properly. Climbers remove their clothing even though they're freezing to death.